Thanks for tuning in. We really hope that you enjoy our brand new video. If so, please leave a thumbs up or leave your comments just below. But for now, let's get started. Enjoy the show.
Hello, my name is Torgeir Silseth, working for Nordic Choice Hotels, and this is my Smack episode.
Hello and welcome back to our Smack Hospitality podcast. Today we've got something special for you. At the beginning of the month, I had the pleasure to represent Smack as a moderator at the annual NHC conference in Copenhagen, the leading hotel investment and development conference focusing on the Nordic hotel market, hosted by Nordic Hotel Consulting. And that is where I saw today's guest, Torgeir Silseth, CEO of Nordic Choice Hotels, on stage, sharing fascinating insights. So I just had to bring him onto the show for you guys. So here it goes. Enjoy this episode. Perfect. Welcome, Torgeir, to the podcast. I'm very happy to have you here with us remotely. We are recording this episode just days after the NHC conference in Copenhagen, which we both attended. We unfortunately didn't have time to meet back then, but maybe one question: how did you enjoy the conference, and is there a key takeaway for you, or many key takeaways maybe?
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the conference very much. I think this is one of the conferences in the Nordic countries that has a European focus and international focus. So that's good because it's a global industry, and then it's important to have the sort of outlook perspective on things. Well, one word that come to mind is shrinking pipeline. This was a conference for developers and franchisors, etc. So they are on the development side of the industry, and of course they are now worrying about the climate for hotel development, and then thus the word shrinking pipeline comes in mind. So that's a cool down of the expectation of hotel development in the shorter terms, at least. And then it was very interesting to listen to Sharon from Ennismore about their development of independent hotels within the Accor family. We are in a much smaller scale, but doing a bit the same in the Nordics, whilst we do Choice Hotels brands, but also independent development of hotel and resorts under their own brand. And so there were some common challenges that he faced there: the industrialization versus the individualism in creating unique hotel concepts.
That was very interesting. I think everyone was very keen on learning a bit more about that because, of course, within Ennismore a lot changed. And like you are saying, that I think finding that balance is probably one of the hardest things that you could ever try to achieve. So I'm happy you found some common denominators, and maybe you also had time to catch him afterwards and ask him some questions. I think he's a very approachable guy, and his keynote was very, very interesting. So I'm happy that my panel ended a bit earlier, so he had a bit more time to share his insights. That was probably good.
Yeah, it was.
But I agree with you. I think the conference was also a very, very good size. I had the chance to talk to many people, which sometimes when the conferences get too big, you have to you lose the overview and you just try to keep your head above the water, basically. And I think this time it was very good, a good balance between talking to people, but also very interesting content. So hopefully I can be back next year. But what you said is true about, I mean, I work in development, and it was very... we have to be very realistic about the near future for upcoming projects for us as well in the Nordics. I think it's a tough market to get into, especially as an international operator, but we will not give up.
No, and a final point from the conference maybe was that you felt that people were really happy to meet again physically, because the conference was held in I think it was held in 20 during the pandemic as a digital conference, not so successful. So they skipped it in 21 and then came back for full flex now and physical in 22. And you can feel the ambience of people were very happy to meet again.
Yeah, that's true, and I think it's interesting that they took a learning from the 2020 edition and then just decided to just not do it in
Mm.
2021. I think many just went straight ahead and just said we will do it anyways. We need to do it. We have to do it. But actually, people they will come back to you and your brand of conferences when the it's possible to meet in real life again, and we saw that. So I can attest that everyone was very happy to just shake hands and give hugs.
Yeah, there's something about the personal meeting. It can't. Digital meetings are good for many things, but they lack important part, and that's the physical, the quality of the physical meeting and mingling and the informal part
Mhm.
of gatherings.
Definitely, definitely. So maybe let's take a few steps back and zoom out a little bit. What made you pursue a career in our beautiful but crazy industry in the first place?
I think it's a beautiful industry, and I've been here for quite some years. Actually, I grew up as the youngest of five siblings in the countryside of Norway, at a farm, and we did other stuff as well. But it was a farm, and as the youngest of five, you don't inherit the farm, and then you have to do something totally different. And I had the interest for food and trained as a chef, and then sort of got in the industry that way by the kitchen way, and then educated on the Norwegian School of Hospitality in Stavanger, had some practice place at the Hotel Firiarseiten in Hamburg, and did different
Oh,
things. But all the way, I wanted to learn more about the industry, and did front office, sales, etc., etc., and then ended up as general manager, and then later as in the executive part of the hotel company I'm still in.
so you really have basically the full perspective of the operations and also the strategic departments of the hotel industry, which is quite rare, I think, nowadays. Because my dad was the same. He started as a waiter and then just worked his way up within different companies. But I feel like when I look around me and my colleagues from who just finished also university, we have some experience in operational departments, but then usually they switch and you directly go into sales or marketing. And I think it's rare and it's very special if you have the full perspective, and I'm sure it benefits you every day still in your
Mm.
current position.
Yeah, I think it's important, of course, in a modern world with the all the digital solutions coming to the industry and the distribution changing rapidly, etc. It's important to have people from different industries and with different competences. But I think basically to know what the hospitality industry is about, know the importance of the guest and guest satisfaction, and know also the people that work and are attracted by the industry is important to operate a larger hotel company as well.
Yeah, I agree. And if my research is correct, I think you've been with Nordic Choice Hotels for quite a little bit, since 1996, if I'm correct, as director of operations first, and then deputy CEO, and then CEO. Um, my question is basically, what did the company right in keeping you and just making sure that you always had a growth potential, and that you just stayed? Because I think in our industry especially, you change jobs quite easily and quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I probably it's different reasons, but one of them lies in me being a sort of loyal person in the basics, but more so that the company has had an amazing journey. When I started, actually, your research is good but not perfect. I I started out as a hotel manager in a quality
Mhm.
hotel together with my wife, actually, back in 1991. Then in 1996 I was relocated and employed centrally in what then was a very small hotel chain with like 10 hotels. Was then in 96 bought by a real estate investor called Petter Stordalen, and he started the journey, and he's still the owner of the company and I am the CEO, and we have worked together since then 96, and we have grown now from 10 to 220 hotels in all over the Nordics. So that has been quite a journey, and that has done so that the challenges has been always there, and there's been not a boring day, and you haven't had the time to sort of get in this situation where you feel you go to the office to do the same again day after day. It has been a lot of commotion going on and a lot of changes, and super inspiring. So I don't feel I've been in the same company for all those years. It's a quite different company now.
So you feel like it's been 3, 4, 5 companies over the years.
At
Just-
least, at least.
at least. And so you just mentioned that originally it was a small chain, and it just in Norway 10 hotels, and then you grew also into the other Nordic markets. So one question that I would have as well is, how would you describe the differences between these markets, and was it a challenge to go, for example, into Finland or into Denmark, or was it rather smooth, let's say?
No, has not been all that smooth. Well, joke aside, Norway and Sweden is very similar in language, business thinking, business culture. Yeah, it's basically the same. So that's the easiest part, and then Denmark also language wise quite similar, culture wise and business culture wise a bit tougher. We say, you probably know that the Dutch are known to be tough in business. The Danes are also been known to be tough in business. So we have some troubles in and out of Denmark, but are happy with our position there now. Finland is difficult because it's more cultural differences, and it's also a totally different language. So we have to switch to English as the common language
Mhm.
when we enter Finland. But we're in there with a group of beautiful 12 hotels, camp and camp collection in Helsinki, and work fine with the Finns as well. But the easiest part, Sweden. Second easiest, Denmark, and the most difficult part in the Nordics is Finland.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I should remember that in our own expansion plan as well. Although I don't have the benefit of speaking any of the Scandinavian languages, but it is true. I heard at the conference again Finnish, and it's crazy. I think it's the most complicated language to learn with Hungarian together.
Yeah,
I
I
read
think
I
you're
read
right.
that somewhere once.
I haven't even tried. So I know some few words, but that's mostly as yeah, that's not the right word for business, so to say.
Yeah, yeah. Probably more just easy sentences. I would like to have a coffee.
Yeah, or a
And
beer.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a beer, yes. So let's move back a little bit to the conference from last week, because you had a very interesting I think they called it Battle of the Giants.
Yeah.
You were one of the giants together with Ramon Aragones from the NH Hotel Group. And you said a few quite interesting things. For example, one was that culture was the most important thing to keep intact during the pandemic, not the money part. And I agree 100%. And I think many people would agree with you. But what is interesting for me to know is how did you do that, or how did you tackle that within your company and within your teams?
Mm. No, it's based on the experience we made, and of course this was traumatic and yeah, very bad experience in that sense, that we are a company built with a private ownership that is very outspoken, very value based, and very energetic, and sort of we have through the years invited all those people to come in and join the company, join the culture. We have a very strong governance culture. We have a very strong um corporate social responsibility program called We Care. And then suddenly you can take care of the people. You can sort of keep your part of the promise. Come to us and we'll take care of you. You work in a good company with good values, and we'll make beautiful things together for our guests, etc., etc. And then suddenly you have to lay them off, or temporarily lay them off, and it's all going down the drain. And then to sort of keep up the mood and keep people to trust you through the pandemic, etc. That was tough. We basically, what we did was strong on information, very transparent and honest. We said during the pandemic, hey guys, if you get a job offer that you feel comfortable with, go for it. We will be here after the pandemic, but right now we can take care of you. If you can take care of yourselves in another, typically within e-commerce or grocery stores, supermarkets, etc., I say go for it. Make sure you get a job and a pay, and we'll be here for you again, because this will actually have an end. And so that was on the communication side of things. So that turns out well. And then we was very we probably, or not probably, for sure, we lost more money than we actually needed to, because we held hotels open longer and more than many of our competitors, just to keep the staff intact. Because we have learned from earlier studies and from earlier experiences that if you do so, you will also get advantage when the society opens up again and people start to travel and conferences are coming back. Then you are fit for fight. You have staff there. You are ready to go much earlier than those who have
Of course.
closed down during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And a final point about the money, because we have been with the same bank for since the beginning of the 90s, and we have a lot of personal relationships there as well. And of course, that also is a part of, yes, banks are all about money and structure and security, but it's also about people. Because what you need when you need help in a situation like this is people that trust that you will take your company through the storm, through the pandemic, and the bank did. And those people and trust is more important than the money itself.
That's a very interesting point, I think.
Hmm.
And you, I think that the hard part was during the pandemic that you as a company or as a leader had to remain authentic and also show your employees that sometimes you also didn't know what was happening,
Hmm.
and that builds trust, right? I think it's a very binding act, if someone shows you your vulnerability and is just very real with you, you will remember that going forward. So I think, and I'm sure that it paid off for you, your strategy, and that many people also came back after the
Yes, luckily, and what's amazing to experience now is that the comeback has been as dramatic in a positive sense as the downfall was dramatic in a negative set. So
Mhm.
it has been quite a roller coaster, and of course now we are into a situation that looks business-wise a bit grim, but nothing like what we have been through. So I said we can manage inflation, we can manage the thing that are lying ahead of us, because we have experienced so much worse things before.
We basically went through a boot camp just now, so we are very trained.
Really, really.
And you also mentioned something on stage. I think it was an internal study. I don't know. You have to explain, but you said something like if you kept people 6 months longer, or you found out that if you kept people 6 months longer, that would mean 18 millions or something more profit for the company. So maybe you can share a little bit more about these insights and how we tackle this problem of turnover, especially when fight for talent is as hard or as important as at the moment.
Yeah, I think what you said is quite right and to the point. And the basic for this is exactly what you said: the battle for getting people back, because they have gone to the supermarket, they have gone to different other industries, and then it was really hard to get them back. And then we started to see, okay, what is the economic impact if we sort of slowed down the turnover? It's a high turnover in the industry, and some of the turnover is of course natural and also positive, but some of it is not. And of course, we then started to see how much do it cost to start the hiring process, do the hiring process, then the training and onboarding process, and sort of put a number on it. And then we saw, okay, if we get our people to stay 6 months longer because before they move on, that has an annual value of around 18 million euro on the bottom line, and that's for our company and for most companies significant. So we have started now to work how to keep people on board longer, and
Hmm.
that's by training, motivation, and of course also career planning
Hmm.
for the people, so they can see the next step in
Hmm.
their hospitality career.
Hmm. And maybe they can also see the next step when sometimes they aren't able to see it for themselves. Like I think
Mm.
sometimes you need to also show them, where you could see them, or what actually could be possible. Because sometimes I mean, it's human. We think in very rational and natural steps, and we don't think out of the box, and are not as open to other possibilities sometimes. And then people just quit, and they, because they see something else that makes just rationally more sense to them, but actually within the company there would be possibilities. And sometimes I think companies are not making these calculations as you just mentioned, because it is insane how much money goes into recruitment. Actually, the process of the different interviews,
Mm.
like the trial days, the training, it takes at least 6 months for someone to actually arrive within a company on an emotional level, on of course also a skill level. And so I think it's important that you are sharing these insights as well at the conference and now here in the podcast, because a lot of companies and we as people need to rethink, I think, certain approaches when it comes to hiring and also retaining people. And like you said, it's not about just keeping them forever. At some point, maybe there is a new challenge for someone, but just those 6 months, it helps. It
Mm.
helps tremendously.
It does, and I think a more professional approach also of the succession planning within the company will
Hmm.
help to sort of identify knowledge and people that want to rise into the challenge in the organization. So you have second and third in line, so you can sort of uh, secure the succession, but also can have a more clear goal for the next step for more people in the organization, and that will
Hmm.
help also to slow down the turnover.
Hmm.
And of course, to recruit internal has a lot of good values also to the culture and to people wanting to stay with you more longer.
Of course, because you're sending again a signal of trust, I think, every time you do something like this.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, unfortunately, we also need to briefly address, what was also, I think, really felt at the conference a little bit, that there are uncertain times ahead of us. And you said something very funny on stage. You said you currently read the revenue reports in the morning, and you're very happy, and then you read the news in the afternoon, and you actually you get worried and a bit sad. So I think this is, of course, touching on the great performance levels that we have seen and are still seeing this year. But at the same time, everyone knows it's not all that bright when we look in the near future, probably. So maybe you can expand a little bit on your saying last week.
Yeah, no, it's true. I start the morning with with the revenue report, and it has been amazing this fall, and still are actually. But of course, we see what is coming, and everyone is turning into a macro econom these days. But I said this is quite easy. The governments won't allow the inflation to continue, because then everybody turns poor in quite so short time, and that's good for nobody. So they have to slow down the inflation, and the only way to slow down the inflation is to reduce the demand for groceries, services, hotels, restaurant, conferences, whatever, and hopefully it will be at a level that we can cope with. And as I said, I'm sure we will, but it will be a downfall in demand for our services within the hospitality industry. We as a company are guiding our hotel managers to look into for the forecast for next year a normalized first quarter, because the first quarter in 22 was pandemic all over the place here in Norway and Sweden at least, and then a 10% reduction in revenue for the rest of the year, the Q2, 3, and 4. So a yearly revenue reduction compared to this year at maybe 6-7%, and if you adjust the first quarter, and then 10% off on the second, third, and fourth quarter. So that's what we're preparing for, and I think it will be in those numbers. Some are more optimistic. I do hope they are right, but with a very outgoing, very positive, and energetic owner, my role has been through all these years to try to keep more on the uh,
Realistic.
realistic. That's a good word. I was almost saying negative, but realistic side of things, no?
Yeah, you have to sort of step into that role to counterbalance probably a little bit. But realistic is always a better word than pessimistic.
It is. It is. It is.
Well, yeah, like you said, I hope, of course, the optimistic people are right. But of course, you need to be prepared. Even though, again, I think it feels like no one knows what's going to happen. So every preparation method, like step you take, is good. But in the end, you will only be smarter when you look back in a few months.
Mhm. Yeah, but
um,
it's always right to be prepared, is my saying.
mhm,
So then you can face almost everything. So we are preparing and prepared for the downfall, but hope for the best.
mhm. That's always the best way to go into something like this. But during your time in the company, you've probably seen many ups and downs, and it's now apart from, of course, the pandemic, because that would be too boring if you say this. Um, what was your biggest challenge, maybe in since you've been with Nordic Choice, like I said, apart from the pandemic, and also what was your biggest success story, to end on a positive note?
Well, I think the greatest challenge has been to grow and sort of make the organization function well through all the different phases we have been through, with all the growth from 10 to 220 hotels, and you have to totally reorganize. You have to sort of get in new competence and different competence, and not get stuck with the people you like and you have been working with for many years, but the sort of the scale of the business are changing so rapidly that you have to have new competence and different backgrounds in. So that has been challenging, but also very rewarding, and but it's difficult to sort of on a constant basic changing the organization and the
Mhm,
management team, so you are adjusted to the current situation when growing so rapidly.
mhm,
What I think is, I don't like the word success, because you can say it's successful to grow from 10 to 220 hotel. It's successful to be profitable. It's successful to survive the pandemic. But what I'm personally are most proud of is to have identified and give an opportunity to a lot of young people in the industry, from different department heads to general manager, from general manager to operating officers, and all those people that under our leadership has been able to fulfill their dreams and done a great journey for themselves, and also help the company a lot. I think that's sort of what is stand back. Of course, we have developed some spectacular hotels in the Nordic and all, but sort of helping people achieve their goals and do their journey in the hospitality, whilst also making the company great, has been a very rewarding journey.
It all comes back to the people, right?
It does. It always does.
Well, these are some perfect last words. Thank you so much, Torgeir, for being on the podcast and for taking the time out of your, no doubt, very busy schedule at the moment. And I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully see you very soon again, either in Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, or if you come to Vienna.
You're more than welcome, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media, or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time.
If you're still around now, then I'm sure that you enjoyed this video. If so, you can check out another video here, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or check out our other stuff just below. See you soon!